Zohran Mamdani gets an endorsement from a former Cuomo backer. Supporters of EPA employees push for their reinstatement. An iconic Manhattan diner prepares for closure, questioning ACS investigations. And an online subway surfing trend leads to a lawsuit. From WNYC, this is NYC Now. I'm Janae Pierre. Democratic Representative Adriano Espaillat of New York's 13th Congressional District is endorsing Zohran Mamdani for mayor, boosting his campaign ahead of a contentious November election. Espaillat represents much of northern Manhattan, including Harlem and Washington Heights, as well as the Northwest Bronx. He's considered a major power broker in the Latino community, though Mamdani handily won over Hispanic voters on his own during last month's Democratic primary. Espaillat had previously supported former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the race. Supporters of more than 100 federal Environmental Protection Agency employees who were put on leave last week are pushing the agency to reinstate them. The agency says the workers are under investigation for signing a petition that criticized the EPA, which recently announced it would roll back 31 regulations, including air quality standards. Susie Inglot is president of the local union that represents EPA staff. She was among those who rallied in Manhattan's Foley Square this week.
I have no plans on leaving, and that I believe strongly in the EPA as an institution, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that it's still standing after all of this.
EPA officials say the 2-week leave can potentially be extended, depending on the length of the investigation. An iconic Manhattan diner that's been in business for decades is closing its doors for good later this month. WNYC's Hannah Frischberg has more.
Hectors Cafe and Diner has been operating in the Meatpacking District since 1949. But after over 7 decades at its good old West 12th Street location, the eatery is throwing in the towel. The news follows Mayor Adams' announcement in October that Hectors' corner of the neighborhood will be redeveloped. The reimagined space will include an expansion of the Whitney Museum and the High Line, and mixed-income housing. Hectors' last day in business will be July 18th.
Attorneys with the Legal Aid Society did some digging recently and found that families are experiencing unnecessary and traumatic investigations from the city's Administration for Children's Services. More on that after the break. A new report from the Legal Aid Society suggests that New York City's Administration for Children's Services, or ACS, is subjecting more children and families to aggressive and traumatic investigations than necessary. Melissa Friedman is an attorney in charge of legal strategy and training at Legal Aid's juvenile rights practice. She co-authored the report, which suggests that ACS is violating the Fourth Amendment rights of children, unreasonable searches and seizures by government officials.
Too many calls are being screened in, leading to too many investigations. And then when those investigations happen, they can be quite aggressive. They can happen in the middle of the night. There are often strip searches. Frequently, cupboards are gone through and medicine cabinets, etc., even if the allegations don't relate to any of that level of searching. And it causes real harm to children.
According to the report, about 100,000 children are investigated each year in New York City. But Friedman says there's only a 22% substantiation rate, meaning that there was only finding of abuse or neglect during investigations about 20% of the time. Now, I'm no mathematician, but just think about the difference.
That delta is enormous. It's, something over 75,000 children a year. And we can't say that all of those investigations are unnecessary, but we certainly can say that some or many are.
Melissa says part of the problem is a state-level issue, in which the hub that receives all reports of child maltreatment isn't screening out enough calls. And once a call is screened in, it must be investigated by ACS. The Legal Aid Society's report also reveals who's impacted the most by these investigations.
So 1 in 2 Black children in New York City will be investigated by the time they turn 18. The people who are collateral contacts in their lives, teachers, neighbors, family, friends, are all investigated. And that investigation can take up to 60 days and often does take up to 60 days, let alone if the case is indicated and then ACS remains in the family's life.
Melissa and her colleagues at the Legal Aid Society have a laundry list of recommendations for the city's child welfare system. One involves the agency holding their own CPS workers accountable to their existing policies.
Many of them are quite good. For example, they should only be carrying out strip searches when there's any cause to suspect that there might actually be injury under the clothing. But what we hear anecdotally in our practice time and time again is that is not the way this is carried out.
She says some of the biggest recommendations are at the state level. In fact, there's legislation on Governor Kathy Hochul's desk right now. It's called
the Anti-Harassment and Reporting Bill, which eliminates anonymous reports to the state central register and in its place puts confidential reporting. And that would eliminate thousands of unnecessary investigations a year.
That's Melissa Friedman, an attorney in charge of legal strategy and training at the Legal Aid Society's juvenile rights practice. In response to the report, ACS officials say the agency remains focused on equitably ensuring the safety and respect for the youngest New Yorkers and their families, no matter their race, ethnicity, or background. ACS adds that the agency has maintained low caseloads for their Child Protective Services workers and enhanced their resources to conduct complex assessments of child safety. A Manhattan woman whose son died while subway surfing can move forward with a lawsuit against the social media companies that helped to popularize the dangerous trend. That's according to a recent ruling from a state judge. WNYC's Samantha Max has more.
15-year-old Zachary Nazario was on top of a J train riding over the Williamsburg Bridge when he hit his head, fell off, and died. His mom, Norma Nazario, is now suing the companies that own TikTok and Instagram. Her lawsuit says the apps inundate young people with videos that encourage them to participate in unsafe activities. Joe Belloc is an attorney representing Nazario.
This is something that was preventable, and she wants to try to prevent other parents from going through this type of experience.
A spokesperson for Meta, which owns Instagram, says videos encouraging hazardous behavior violate its policies and are taken down when the company becomes aware of them. But Nazario says in her lawsuit that she looked through her son's social media feed after his death and found his algorithm had recently sent him various posts about subway surfing. 3 people have died in New York City this year while subway surfing, according to the NYPD. Police say 6 people died in 2024. At a press conference last year, Nazario held a small photo of her son from his funeral.
The social media companies need to step up. Take these videos down and stop pushing harmful challenges to our kids.
Mayor Adams stood beside her and criticized social media platforms for their role in the trend.
They have an obligation not to put profit over public safety.
State lawmakers have urged social media companies to do more to prevent subway surfing. The NYPD launched an essay contest with a $500 prize for high schoolers to share their recommendations.
One of my friends, they subway surf, and I know his family definitely worries about that.
The MTA has also tried to deter subway surfing with its Ride Inside, Stay Alive campaign.
Listen.
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 Ride Inside, Stay Alive.
Nazario's lawsuit now moves into the evidence-sharing phase. Her lawyer says they hope to educate the public about how these social media companies operate.
That's WNYC's Samantha Max. And by the way, TikTok did not respond to a request for comment. Thanks for listening to NYC Now from WNYC. I'm Janae Pierre. We'll be back tomorrow.